Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, the podcast where we delve into the world of CMS systems and their crucial role in website and web content development. In each episode, we'll explore the reasons why founders, CEOs, CTOs, and CMOs of web content development companies need CMS systems to thrive in the digital landscape. Get ready to uncover the secrets behind successful website management, content creation, and seamless user experiences. Here's your host, Jonathan Ames.
Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, a podcast by ButterCMS. Here we share insights on the intersection of content and web development and how you can align these two often competing forces to improve efficiency and business results. Joining us in this episode is Tania Miranda, Global Head of SEO and Content, to talk about how to structure your SEO content strategy ahead of your web or blog migration to maximize post-migration results. Welcome to the show, Tania.
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for having me today.
Glad to have you here. We'll give the audience just a little flavor of your career and kind of some of your favorite projects you've worked on.
Sure. So I've actually been in SEO and content for over 8 years now. Started off in B2C affiliate marketing and focused on a lot of retailer landing pages, working with really big publishers in Malaysia, Singapore, and the UK as well. So that was a very interesting moment in my career because I learned everything that I know now about SEO and content from there. It was very much a hands-on job. I would say maybe one of the funnest things from that part of my career would be setting up. I was the country manager of Malaysia when I was at Imbol. It was then called Global Savings Group after, and setting up the Malaysian part of that team. That was really fun because I'm originally from Malaysia and I was able to, include any sort of Malaysian nuances into my content, really utilizing any knowledge that I know of my own culture to help with SEO and content. And then from the UK side of things, I was one of the first people who joined the team as well and really grew the team alongside some of my other colleagues. And that was a really fun part of my career. And then after 5 years at Global Savings Group, I then moved on to recruiting, which I have been at for nearly 4 years now. Another really great company, have absolutely loved my time here. And I would say my most fun or interesting project I've done is definitely our website and blog migration and redesign. It was a 2-in-1. Actually, it was a 3-in-1. It was a migration, redesign, and also a change of narrative. It was a massive project that lasted for nearly a year with really great results. Learned so much. It was really, really fantastic.
That's awesome. I think I look back in my career, some of the projects that I enjoyed most were those kind of huge web projects that take like 6 months or a year. People don't realize when you're viewing a website, the huge amount of work that goes into structuring everything. If you're migrating everything, redesigning things, making sure everything works, all your links, all your content, the voice is just huge. So hats off to doing that. Maybe start us off on the strategy side here. Why would someone want to migrate over their blog or their content? What are some possible reasons why? I mean, you could talk about your last project, why you guys.
Sure. There are quite a few reasons why people might want to do it. It could be a CMS migration whereby the current CMS that they have is just not serving them the way that it should. It could be a subdomain to subfolder migration where they want to really maximize on that SEO impact. Maybe they've already grown their blog on a subdomain and they want to move it to a subfolder to push the website further. That's one of the reasons, or that's one of the things that we did actually. It could be a redesign, just because designs are outdated. They know that is no longer serving them. They really need to refresh everything. So there are a few different reasons why. And then for us at recruiting, it was a mix. I would say, probably maybe not the best idea to do everything at once, but it turned out well, so it's okay. But for us, one of the things was that, our blog was on a subdomain. It was very, very strong. And our website, the recruiting website, was not performing as well. And so we wanted to really grow the website and the recruiting brand as a whole, also organically. And so we thought one of the ways to do that is to do a migration from subdomain to subfolder. Secondly, we in the marketing team, so like SEO and growth, for example, we didn't really have control over the website. So we were not able to do any testing. We were not able to do any optimizations on the website, which was not ideal, of course, because it's your revenue making website. You want to make sure that you have access to be able to do all of these things. And so we were looking into a CMS migration. And then the next thing is also the CMS migration from the blog perspective. We were on WordPress and the backend, at least what we had, was not optimal. I found it to be really clunky and I wanted a lot more customization options so that we can really, do more with the blog. And then following that is also the design aspect. We wanted to just have a fresh new design. By then, it felt a little bit outdated. And also from the growth perspective, they wanted to also make these pages more conversion optimized. From an SEO perspective, we wanted to ensure that we were able to create nicer looking templates that would benefit SEO. So that is why we decided to do a migration. And then in addition to that, we also did a messaging change and we wanted that messaging and new branding to also be showcased on the new website. And that's why everything kind of happened all at once. We very, very much underestimated how much work that will be. And especially coming from my perspective, at least, I was involved in all three. Either as an actual, the person who's doing the execution or just being consulted. I was there, so it was a lot. And that was also on top of my regular tasks. So challenging here, it was great. But it was a lot. But I think we did a good job. I still stand by the decisions that we made.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, hats off to doing that. Those are a lot of big things. I mean, doing a redesign is big.
Yeah.
Migrating is big. Changing CMS is big. All of those things. I know previously I did a migration from a WordPress site to another CMS and just making sure that everybody was up to date on, how to use that CMS. Yeah. How do we structure things? Because a lot of times websites kind of get messy like rooms and you have to kind of reorganize them and structure them. Yep. And so as you're doing that process, often there's some restructuring and you start thinking of schema and there's just a lot to it. So, all right, help us break down so this doesn't seem intimidating. We don't scare everyone off. Yeah. There really are good reasons to do this. Yeah. And, people like Tania who've done this can tell you that there's good results that come out of it. So how, as a strategy, can you structure this so that it's not overwhelming, so you kind of prioritize things and don't miss anything?
So from the business side of things, this does relate also to your overall SEO strategy for a web or blog migration, by the way, which is why I asked. But I think first things first, if this is coming from you, the SEO specialist, I think it's super important to make sure that you get buy-in and make sure that the marketing team and other relevant stakeholders are aware of the importance of SEO's involvement in the migration. So I think you should really conduct a business case and or a risk assessment to show how a migration can positively affect the business if done correctly, and what are the effects of a poorly strategized and poorly managed migration can do to a business. And then this also, ensures that you as the SEO specialist, you're not an afterthought in this process because, believe me, that happens a lot and it usually doesn't go well. In addition to that, I think it's also really important to have clear goals from leadership. So again, it's very important that you as part of the marketing team, your stakeholders and your leadership team are aligned on the company and business goals. So like in our case, the leadership also agreed that, okay, we needed to go with this new messaging and therefore that comes with the new branding. How is it currently? What is the current state of our website? What do we need to do to magnify on this? And so in that sense, we had that, we had the clear goal and we had the buy-in. And a migration of any sort is very, very costly. It is time consuming and it is a very risky project. And so you want to make sure that you are all aligned and working in the right direction to avoid any major issues or fixes in the future. So you need to make sure that you set expectations so people are aware.
Yeah, the expectations part is huge, especially for people who are not working in the web every day. They simply have no idea about the amount of work and what goes into it, as well as, like you said, the risks and the benefits. And I love that you said, use that as step one, build that business case, get that to the stakeholders, make sure that everyone's bought in and that expectations are correct. So what's the next step? Now, let's say you've got expectations set, got buy-in, everyone's excited. What do you do next?
So the next is you need to have a very solid strategy with clear objectives, because without a strategy, your migration will fail. It is as simple as that. And by this point, I would say you should already know why you're conducting a web or blog migration. And if you don't, then I highly suggest revisiting that, because otherwise you're not really going to get past that point. So it's important to know what kind of migration you're doing, why you're doing this, what are you expecting from it? So what are your objectives, what timeline you're working with, how realistic the migration plan is alongside the timeline, etc. Because one of the things that we observed or went through at Recruity was initially we're like, okay, so we're going to do all these things. We can do this in 4 months. And everyone's just like, yeah. Even me, by the way, like I was not aware of how intense it was going to be. And then obviously, as you started to do the research and talking to vendors for, CMSs, those in itself take a long time because there's so many stakeholders. So all of these different things, you really need to break it out. You need to have a solid strategy with clear objectives. And then the next step I would say is to have everything planned out to a T or as much as possible, because if you're doing a blog migration and redesign, you want to make sure that you have everything planned out. Like, what's your ideal blog environment going to look like? What are necessities? What are nice to haves? How do you want to structure your blog article template to make sure that you can create a good user experience and maximize SEO efforts? If you're doing it for the website, you want to outline how your product pages should be set up for conversion and or for SEO, how to, again, ensure a good user experience, etc. So you need to have your vision to be able to start planning out everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great points. Yeah. Planning those things. One of the things I've seen too that people have done successfully is when they're making these migrations, they'll do a benchmark of kind of the current state. So they'll say, all right, here's how long it takes us to produce content, or here's, our current SEO rankings. And then once they're done, they'll do another take on those same metrics. And then they'll compare those at the end as kind of a postmortem and say, hey, here's the benefits that we got out of this. Yeah. That's super powerful, because especially if it's like you said, a long project, 8 months or so, executives starting to forget, why they bought it. And then you show them that and they're like, wow, yeah, you guys now, instead of taking, 2 weeks to get a piece of content out, now it takes 2 days. Mm-hmm. Total business benefit there. I can see, this is cost savings for us. So yeah, all those things, it's just, that's where that planning, I love that you structured that, even with a blog, all the planning of why you're going to do that. So yeah, great point. So now you've got your planning in place, your structure after your buy-in. What's the next step?
So the next step is you need to make sure that you have a proper project management setup, because again, without one, I think the migration will also be just doomed to fail. And that's because there's so many details that go into a migration that it is so essential to have such a setup to make sure that no detail goes unnoticed. It's important to have a project brief that really clearly outlines all of the important information like risks, blockers, definition of done. And, a migration also consists of many stakeholders. So a RACI chart is also crucial. You want to make sure that anyone that is relevant to anything website related must be consulted. Well, a mistake that we did was we didn't involve our CTO as early on as possible, because, we involved a lot of the marketing stakeholders to do all the initial research, like CMS. We had to make sure that it fit SEO, it fit the growth team, product marketing, localization. We had a lot of needs. But then, one thing that we forgot to do was we probably should have checked with the CTO at that stage. Hey, does this website does the CMS fit, technical needs? We thought about it from a technical perspective, but obviously not on that level. And so, just an advice to everyone, involve your CTO early on. We did it a little bit later.
That's a great point. Yeah. I mean, CMS is really a kind of a meeting point of IT and marketing, and big sites at least, where you don't have just kind of a WYSIWYG editor. And so you really want to have both sides on it, because you don't want to have, a wonderful CMS that your marketing team loves, but your dev team hates to support and basically drags their feet on. And you don't want to have the opposite either, where dev loves the CMS, but marketing is like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare to work in. So it's bringing those two together. So for the non-project managers, define RACI. So
yes. Yeah. So a RACI chart is something that's used in project management. I don't remember what it stands for specifically, but it includes information relating to, who should be responsible. Oh, wait, actually now I'm remembering as I'm saying it. Yeah. Who should be responsible? Who should be accountable? Who should be consulted? And who should be informed? So that's what RACI stands for. And so, yes, if you have a lot of stakeholders, this is important because then you and your team / stakeholders should really think about, hey, who should be involved in each step so that as you start working on this massive project, you know who needs to be responsible for making X decision, who needs to be just consulted, who needs to just be informed, and who's accountable. So then it's very clear who you need to go to for what.
Yeah. No, really important, because if the worst thing possible is when there's a really important task and nobody feels responsible for it.
Yeah.
And so it kind of gets, everyone's like pointing to the other person. I thought you were taking care of them. I thought you were taking. So a RACI chart really helps with that. It also, covers those issues you were talking about of like, do we need to get this leader involved? And when do we need to get them involved? So great points. All right.
Yeah.
So project management, very important, especially on a big project like this.
Yes.
What is the next step then?
So the next step is you need to make sure that you have all the resources that you need to successfully conduct a migration. So before committing to such a project, what migration you're going to do, the strategy that you have put in place, and also all of your project management discussions, it should now become clear what resources you need. So it could be that you need an external SEO consultant who is a specialist in tech and migrations. It could be that you need a UX consultant, a migration agency, for example, because that's a very, very time-consuming task. So if your budget is limited, then you need to assess the situation and your needs and then make the call on whether or not you will go ahead with this migration or what you're willing to compromise or delay or maybe even cut. Because oftentimes, there's so many things that you have to think about that you might forget some of these details that once you're in that stage of doing it, you realize, oh no, I need extra support because this task is going to take me a lot more time. Oh, it's a very, time consuming and intensive task. It means that a freelancer for this is going to be very expensive. And then if you're stuck there, then you're just stuck. So ideally, you should be able to really think about what resources do you need? Do you have the budget for it? If you don't, try to, find a way to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. So resources. So would you say that's the last of the strategic steps, or do you then you go to the next tactical pieces in the plan?
I would say that would be two more considerations. I mean, the first one is related to these resources, but specifically making sure that you have a UX and SEO and growth consultants or stakeholders, because with any migration that involves a redesign, structural or content changes, it is crucial to have UX, SEO, and growth stakeholders. So either internal or external, because any small change could have a big business impact. So for example, changing the color or design of a CTA button without consulting the growth team could result in a drop in conversions. Removing content without consulting the SEO team could result in a drop in rankings, and changing designs without consulting the UX team could result in a bad user experience. Maybe also like a drop in conversions, right? Like they all work harmoniously together. And typically all these stakeholders would work closely together anyway, and they should have these discussions together to see things from all angles. But in the events you need external support, then these roles are really crucial to consider, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Do you see any, especially when you're bringing in your UX people, do you see that they do any kind of testing, or is that mandatory, or is it just you need somebody who has a UX eye to look at it and say, yeah, that's good?
Yes, you do need someone with an UX eye to look at it and say, yes, it's good, but that it should also be in collaboration with growth, especially because you want to make sure that it is, nicely presented also for conversion purposes. And it should also fit the brand and the story that your website wants to tell. And, it has to be pleasing to the eye as well. I mean, I think outside of marketing, maybe a lot of people don't really think about it aside from like, oh, this is ugly, or oh, this is hard to use. But within marketing, I think we're a bit more critical and I do think it has its place, and it is important to make sure that they're there to help, make things nice and that it works and that they continue iterating that with the growth team.
Okay. So as you're going through the strategic process, there's various stakeholders who are involved in this.
Yeah.
How do you create kind of unity in that process so you don't have individual stakeholders kind of pulling in different directions or arguing things? Is that easy, or is that you're smiling? Is there any kind of tips for that?
I think it's tricky. Not really as long, but I do believe if everyone is on the same page as to why we're doing this and it benefits all the relevant stakeholders, I think that is probably one of the easiest way to get unity, because then everyone is more motivated to work on this. But yeah, otherwise I'm sure it can be a bit draining for some people if they're like, oh, what are you dragging me into this migration? I didn't want to do it in the first place. But I think that also goes back to the buy-in, like really making them understand, why are we doing this? What is the business impact? And then from a unity perspective, something to consider is also making sure that the right people are always involved at the right time, because I understand, it is frustrating if there is such a big project that requires out of a specialist that they're only brought in later on, and then they all of a sudden have to do lots of different things, or they have to not tiptoe, but they have to redo some stuff just to fit what was already done. Because like I've had that experience before with another redesign whereby I wasn't consulted, and so the redesign was done, but I would have done it in a different way from an SEO perspective. And due to time constraints, for example, or timeline constraints, there was nothing that could be done. And so then it was on me to adapt. And then that can be a bit frustrating because, but it doesn't align with my goals. So yeah, I think making sure that people are involved at the right step. And I think this one, you should also rely on your other colleagues to ask, hey, are we missing anyone else? We want to make sure that everyone is there. And maybe not worst case scenario, but if you're really, really not sure because, I don't know, the project is just so big and you have such a big company or a big team, you could always just really ask around and say, hey, we're going to be working on this project. We want to make sure that all the right stakeholders are included. You could always have some sort of a pre-kickoff, right? Where you talk to people to understand, are you actually going to be relevant for this project? And if so, where? Oh, you are great. We will start putting you in the process. Then you do the project management process, you do the RACI, and then that's sorted. So yeah, I think that'll be my advice, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's great points. I mean, I think one of the key points that you brought up in the very beginning was, talking about why you're doing the whole project. And if you can keep that front and center throughout the whole process, because people forget, they get in the weeds in their specialty. And that's where these, kind of fights as well. No, we should do it this way. No, that way. And if you can get people to remember, this is why we're doing it as an organization, then people can rally around that, because it's not your idea or my idea. Hey, here's the objective. Let's all take our specialties, and is this thing we're suggesting going to help us reach that objective? Yeah, really important. It's a good idea for bringing peace during the process. So
at the end of the day, you're just trying to match the search intent of the people that you're working with.
Yes. All right. So what would be the next step after this then? You got everybody on board here.
Yep. So everybody's on board. You have the project management stuff in place. The next step I would say is to then start looking at it from your perspective. So in this case, we're talking about SEO and really trying to see what is the current state of your blog or your website. What impact does it have on your traffic, on your rankings, on your conversions, and what could be better and why? And then really start outlining, what are absolutely necessary things that you have to do that is going to drive an impact. What are some nice to haves? It might not necessarily make a huge impact. Maybe it will in the longer run, but it's just nice to have. And what are things that maybe somebody else wants or you eventually want to have, but it's really not crucial at all. So like a nice to have there's still a little bit of priority, But this one is just like, okay, I would love, for example, amongst all the other things that we have to do, I would love to have a really nice pillar page design, something like what Hotjar has, or there's another company, but I forgot, like a really nice design. But yeah, based on priorities, I know that it's not necessary. Therefore, I'm going to focus on just the content. And so I would put that kind of like at the bottom where it's not super necessary. As long as my content can be seen, can be crawled, that's more important. So something like that is what will go at the bottom. Again, that could be very situational. So that's what I would start doing, and then really start assessing your website, thinking about how you envision it, and then working with relevant stakeholders on how they see it as well. So for example, in my case with a blog, we were going to do a redesign and I wanted the template to be different. So for example, I really wanted a table of contents. I really wanted breadcrumbs just to make crawling easier. Also for user experience, I want that little button that you can click and then it takes you to the top. I forgot the name of that. So, it's all of these small examples which I believe could make a difference to something, user experience, SEO, conversions. And then, working with the relevant stakeholders to get their feedback on it, start doing research. I spent a lot of time looking at lots of SaaS websites and blogs to get some inspiration and just really outlining. And then start working with our web designer on some mockups.
Does there need to be a order to tactically what you do? Like, do you write your text first and then make your images changes afterwards? Do you do your framework before any of that? Or what's the order of kind of production when you're actually working on this?
That's a really good question. When we were working on it with our UX designers specifically, and also our just general designers, it was always advised that the text is ready first. And it's because they really wanted to understand like the nuance of the text, in addition to how much content there was going to be in order to be able to really structure the page properly. I think in some cases, we were able to get the design first and then the text, but really in most cases, they were like, no, we want to understand the context. And then they were able to like tell the story with their designs.
Mm-hmm. And as far as, things like technical SEO, is that near the end? Is that in the beginning? Is that all throughout?
Oh, that's really all throughout. Because one of the things as well is the web architecture, right? That's also something that we really wanted to change and improve on to make sure that there's a better flow of information and a better relation to our content as well. So I think it is important to do it all throughout. It's just different things at different points.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So on a tactical level, this is a common question that comes up about blogs, is how do you get, somebody comes in from SEO, they land on a blog page, they're like, great, this answers my question. Now the question is, how do I structure linking internally, and how do I structure maybe buttons or call to action so that you can, A, get the best SEO benefit out of it, but B, point people in the right direction to the next piece of content really that would be good in their journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think when it comes to internal linking, we can talk about that first. I think it's important to determine what your pillar pages are. Like, what are your core pages? So in the case of Recruity, we had two main ones. We had our applicant tracking system pillar page and our collaborative hiring pillar page. So collaborative hiring was our messaging, essentially, our value prop. So, and ATS is because Recruity is an applicant tracking system or recruitment software. And so these two themes are a common occurrence throughout our blog. And anytime we talked about ATSs and its keyword variations and also collaborative hiring, we would link to these two pages. And so we also wanted to make those pillar pages as powerful as possible, because it was also part of the strategy that we wanted these to rank specifically with the ATS keyword because it's a money keyword. And then in addition to that, I would say definitely determine your topic clusters and then the associated articles or links, and then really map them out and to make sure that you can then utilize it correctly. And then you'll have a much better idea of, okay, under, for example, the cluster of recruitment strategies, there's social media marketing, there's employer branding, there's, a whole bunch of other stuff. And so next time when you are working on your internal linking, these pages would come to mind. And then there's also that tactic of, searching in Google with like site. You put in your website name and then a keyword, and then any gaps that you see, you can just fill it out. So for example, if I were to put it in Google and then I put recruitment strategy, I put ATS and then all of the keyword variations like recruitment software, ATS software, all of these different keywords, I would find all of the articles that includes it. And then I would know, okay, I'm going to link to our ATS pillar page. And then you can do this for your pillar pages and also your topic clusters to make sure that it is all linked seamlessly and in the correct places. And I think you should also think about, if you have a problem or solution awareness type of content, then you can evaluate those pieces of content and then see if there are opportunities to internal link to high converting pages, for example. So if I have an article where I write about manual actions in recruitment that are wasting your time, then it's likely that I'm going to add Recruity as a solution, or I'm going to show that, hey, a manual action that's wasting your time is that you are writing emails for each candidate when you could create a template that you can automatically send. And so I would likely then put, Recruity has such a feature, right? And then I would likely link it to a product page or another high converting page. So that's something that you could also think about. Orphan pages, I think a lot of people often after publishing an article, they kind of just forget about it, don't think about internal links, and then those pages just go to rot and it's just sitting there. And they could be high value pages, whether from a conversion or SEO perspective. So I think that is something that people should definitely look into. And if there's no opportunity to, like, say, fix it with internal linking, meaning there's nothing for you to link to, then you might want to evaluate why is that? Is it a special case where it's okay for it to stand alone, but you make it more seen in other ways? Perhaps it's some sort of an enablement piece that might not necessarily be relevant in other articles, in which case that's okay. And then if not, then you might want to consider, do I want this article at all? And then that's also part of your strategy. And then another thing I did, which was also very helpful, was that I mapped out all of the URL structures that I had and what they were. So for example, is it a blog article? Is it a podcast, a downloadable, a webinar, etc.? And then I wouldn't say I memorized them, but just because I worked so much with them, it was kind of in my head. And so at least for the purpose of the migration and doing the internal linking, towards the new URL, it helped a lot. And I was able to see side by side, did I get this right? Is there anything that needs to be fixed? And so that was very helpful. And then I would say lastly, review your anchor text and your internal links to see if this can be optimized. So for example, do you want to make fixes to make it sound more natural? Maybe you want to internal link to other relevant articles. Again, sometimes when people write new articles, they might forget to spread that out. Or even better anchor texts. Maybe you want to do it towards long tail keywords instead, or contextual anchor texts. So those would be some of the recommendations I would have for internal linking strategy.
Oh, it's great advice. So and the second part of the question, the actual human links, how do you get people, as the internal linking generally is done for SEO purposes. Yeah. But if somebody lands on a piece of content, how can you structure it so there's the next step for them and knowing where to send them in a CTA or a link or maybe related articles? What have you found works there to kind of get people moving inside of your blog rather than just dropping on a page?
Yeah, that is a good one. So one thing that I really loved about our CMS migration to Webflow was that we were able to build custom, let's say, visual highlight boxes in many different ways to create such CTAs, whether it's just wording or links or to ebooks, etc. So our web designer, he created really, really nice ones, and our designer really made it look pretty. And I think this was a massive improvement to our blog, because instead of just going to a blog and just seeing like a text that says related this, we were able to visually highlight it in a nice looking box, either with like, I don't know, a light bulb icon or with a question mark icon, something like that, and customize the text to make them, to entice them. So an example I can give you is, let's say we're talking in an article about recruitment processes. One of the tips is, as part of the recruitment process, one of the things that you want to do is to have a very good job description. XYZ reasons why. You could use a visual highlight box to send them towards a more specific blog article that talks about job descriptions, or you can send them towards your downloadables if you have a whole bunch of job description templates. So that is one way to do it. Another way to entice people to click is if, again, we have a problem awareness type of article where they're on this manual recruitment process article, like I mentioned earlier. Something that we've also tried and saw worked was we added snippet of customer testimonials that showcase that, hey, we tried this with Recruity, or we use Recruity to help automate some of our processes, and we were very happy, for example. And then that link either links to the full customer success story, or it links to a page that we want them to go to. So either another article that, again, goes deeper into the topic, or a product page so that they can learn more. So that's some example.
Yeah, great examples. All right. So let's say you've got all this done. You've done your migration successfully. What are the metrics you're going to look at to measure and track the effectiveness of this SEO content post-migration?
Yes. The metrics I would look at would definitely be organic traffic, your rankings, your conversions, your loading time, and then also any crawling or other significant errors. So in terms of organic traffic, you do want to give it a bit of time, but especially in the first 2 days, you can already see how the migration has affected your website. You will likely see some change, of course. And then in terms of rankings, in my experience, it was relatively quick to see some changes. I think in less than a week, we saw a lot of positive changes. Of course, there were a lot of fluctuations as well as time went on, but the fact that a lot of the, let's say, content that we were working on in the migration or before the migration, all the updates, the fact that we saw immediate increases was huge. So that was a really good indicator that everything migrated well, and also we optimized it. We created new content, and look, it's already ranking. The visibility on the SERPs, conversions. So making, seeing that something break during the migration. Are you not seeing conversions anymore all of a sudden? Or are you seeing significantly less conversions than usual? So then that's usually an indicator if something is not right. With loading time, you just want to see what is the speed and the performance of the pages. Usually all of these things you would test beforehand anyway, but it's still a good thing to check after to make sure that it's also fine. And then, crawling and other significant errors. So are there issues with crawlability or indexability? And then also, any other issues related to your migrated URLs. I would say these are the key things that I would track to measure the effectiveness post-migration.
Yeah. I love you mentioned load time. A lot of people may not think about that as a metric that they'd want to track. Did you have specific goals when you were tracking and your migration for load time? Or were you just like looking to see it's not getting worse with our new migration?
It was more that. No, I mean, like when we were working on these pages and we were continuously testing, we were looking at the Google guidelines, and, at some point, like myself and the website designer were like, oh gosh, why is it so high? We can't get it to any lower. And then at another point, we were like, let's check how other competitors, other B2B SaaS companies are loading. And then we realized, they're all the same. So we're like, I think we're fine. And we were. We just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like broken or like really nothing was loading, because we did add some new animations in the background. I don't know if that was the right word, animations, but gradients, like color gradients that kind of moves. So we wanted to make sure that things like that didn't slow it down. Eventually, though, I will say it was a factor in making it a bit slower. So we did actually get rid of that. But I think it's important to continue monitoring. So maybe at the beginning it's okay, but if you notice, it's not really necessary and it does affect loading time, you might want to revisit that.
Yeah. No, those are really important things. I mean, sometimes as you're in the process of, posting your stuff on your staging server and you're testing it out and you find out those things, wow, this looked really great. And I didn't realize it would have these effects outside of, what we were originally looking for, like page load, and then you make that decision. You're like, you know what, more important to us, the SEO value that this loads fast than the physical looks of this gradient in the background. Good example.
Yeah.
All right. Super excellent content. Really appreciate the kind of the structure that you put to this, Tania. Obviously, you're really good at project management and thinking things through and making sure that they're organized well. Tell me a little something in your career that you've learned. Like if you could go back in a time machine to the beginning of your career, meet yourself as soon as you were getting into your career, what one piece of advice have you learned that you would give yourself back then?
Oh, I would definitely say learn how to market yourself. And I don't mean that in a weird LinkedIn way. I just mean like internally. You need to have good internal marketing for yourself, but then also for the role that you're in, because SEO is such a background job. And I don't mean this as a disrespect to anyone, but we do a lot of things in the background. It's not something that's always obvious. And I think it can go unnoticed, especially to people who don't know marketing at all. And so you need to advocate for yourself. You need to market yourself, really show the impact that you make. Because once that stops, it will affect your company's business. And so it's important to get people to understand, what is the business impact of that? And also just for yourself. I don't really mean, play politics. It's just showcase yourself. And if you don't advocate for yourself, then no one else will. But if you showcase to people that, hey, this is what I do, this is why it's important. And then let's say word gets around, that's how you build that internal marketing. And honestly, this came from like a colleague of mine, Laura, who said this, and she's amazing. And I think it's very true. And that's also then what I would share with others and what I wish I did more of.
No, absolutely. For especially people junior in your career, no one is going to give you a promotion unless they know all the good things you're doing. You're probably doing a whole bunch of great things. Yeah. It's just nobody knows. And so, it's not selfish to show off the good things you're doing. It actually lifts everybody else's spirits. So like, oh, wow, SEO's out there kicking butt. The blog is doing really good. And it's good vibes, and everybody in a company needs the good vibes. So don't be shy, tooting the horn of the things that have been accomplished. Great advice.
Absolutely. So please advocate for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tania, if people want to get a hold of you, connect with you, see the work you're doing, where can they find you?
You can just find me on LinkedIn. As simple as that. I would love to talk to anyone who's going through the same process or have been through the same process. I love talking about content and SEO. So please feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn if you're interested in talking.
And where do you find your insights? Like, do you have follow certain people or go to conferences or their blogs, or what do you like to get inspired from?
It is a mix. There are a few people that I follow on LinkedIn. I do a lot of lurking. And there are some cool events here. A friend of mine, his name is Baptiste Baba. He used to work at Molly, and he's actually starting up an SEO meetup group here in Amsterdam. So if you're in Amsterdam, please go check it out. So I like to go to those types of meetups. There's also, just marketing related meetups. Very, very cool to meet people in the industry. I don't read blogs as much as I used to, but I do have to say that when the time comes where I'm looking for information, I already know where to go. So those would be my main inspiration, or where I find information.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tania. Really appreciate the episode. You gave out a lot of great insights I'm sure people will appreciate.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan.
Sure thing.
Cutting Edge Web Content Development is brought to you by ButterCMS. To find out how you can build better with Butter, stop wasting dev time, and free your marketers from your legacy CMS, visit ButterCMS.com. Also, make sure to search for Cutting Edge Web Content Development in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at ButterCMS, thank you for listening.